We are in middle of Likutei Moharan Torah Yudchet, Torah 18, part 6, Ot Vav, in this Torah. And this Torah is called Kartalita, which means in Aramaic, the treasure chest. And in this Torah, Rabbi Nachman is guiding us, leading us, showing us the path to the fulfillment, the fulfillment of our ultimate purpose, and the fulfillment of our purpose on a personal level, and the way in which we may accomplish our part in fulfilling the purpose of the whole universe. And what is that purpose? What's that complete purpose? That's called Shashua Olam Haba, which is the tremendous pleasure of the world to come, the pleasure of experiencing Hashem directly, experiencing the infinite light, the infinite essence for all of eternity. And that requires a lot of preparation for a finite being to experience Hashem for all of eternity. That takes a lot of preparation and many, many levels of preparation. And so you will also not just the amount, the quantity of the preparation is very significant, but also the quality of the preparation has to be a very specific, very special preparation for some finite being, a limited being, to be able to experience the divine essence for all of eternity. And so for that, you actually need to follow a process that is prepared by Hashem himself, by the Infinite One himself, right? Only the Infinite One knows the exact process through which a finite being, a creature, a creation that he created must follow in order to be able to experience that divine essence for all of eternity. And so that's what the Torah and mitzvot is all about. That's the process that Hashem, the Infinite One himself, prepared for us in his infinite wisdom. And it's not just, and so following this process and knowing how to follow the process in the right way, with our heart and our intention connected to the right purpose, to the right goal, so that while we're following this process, we are doing it in the absolute proper way that will get us as close as possible to that goal. Right? The most amount of preparation. It will prepare us in the greatest way for that goal, to experience what's called Shashua Olam Haba. And that's why, as we spoke about last time, you need these holy souls, these leaders of the generation that are called also Mashiach souls, Moshe souls, souls of Malchut, souls that are comparable to David HaMelech, which are supposed to be our leaders. They are the most worthy to be our leaders. And why do we need them? Why do we need those souls to guide us to that fulfillment of that purpose? We spoke about how you need someone that is able to connect to it already now, someone that can see the end already now. Like we spoke about the maze that's made out of the garden in front of the king's house, the king's palace, and then the king that's looking, or some wise man that's looking up above, is looking at the maze from above, from the balcony. He can see the way out, right? So he's already now connected to the fulfillment of that purpose. He's connected already now to the end of the maze. And so that's why these souls can lead us and guide us through the Torah and mitzvot, how to fulfill the Torah and the mitzvot, through the Torah and the mitzvot, to prepare us in the greatest way to be able to experience the divine essence, to experience Hashem to the best of our ability for all of eternity. And we must also know that every year, and sometimes many times throughout the year, after a soul passes from this world, after a neshama has lived their life in this world and they're already in the next world, every year, and sometimes more than once a year, there's an opportunity for that soul to experience Hashem, the divine essence, in a greater, deeper way. And that's why we do special mitzvot for the merit of these neshamot on the yort site, because every time that there is an opportunity for them to be lifted up to a greater state, a greater experience of Hashem, so there's kind of like a judgment whether they are now worthy, ready for that. And so that's why we do all these mitzvot and brachot and all these things in their merit in order to help them be ready, in order to help them get to that next level and experience even greater bliss until they get to the next level. And that goes on for all of eternity, forever and ever, from one level to that, because Hashem is infinite. And so there's infinite levels of depth of experiencing Hashem for all of eternity. And so we need these neshamot, these holy leaders of the generation, to lead us. And in order to have them lead us, we must crown them with the crown of leadership. And the crown of authority, the crown of leadership, the crown of malchut is a crown of compassion. And Rabbi Nachman explains to us that to the extent and to the degree that we sweeten our anger energy before allowing it to evolve into actual anger, into angry thoughts, angry actions and words and all that, we sweeten it. We take a breath, we stop, and we sweeten it with an awareness, a feeling of compassion, an awareness of our feelings and needs behind whatever is awakening that anger. What's the feelings and needs that are behind that? We connect to our heart, to what's alive in us. We connect to compassionate feeling towards ourselves and towards the other person in the situation. And when we have awakened that compassion, which is really sourced, it's rooted in Emunah, because to the extent and to the degree that we believe in Hashem, that Hashem runs the world, Hashem is the one in control of everything, and Hashem is behind everything that happens, and Hashem is the infinite good, essence of good, and therefore everything that Hashem does is also good. To the degree that we believe that, not just intellectually, but we experience that or connected to that knowledge is in our hearts, so we're experiencing that in our reality. That's the extent that we are able to connect to that compassion in a place of anger and find the good in every situation. And when we do that, we are sweetening the malchut, the crown of Hashem that is usually found in this world. And because the crown, the malchut, the final sphera, as the Zohar describes it, ragleha yordot mavet, her feet descend into the abyss, into the darkness of death, the Zohar says. And that's why what does that mean? The whole aspect of malchut is Hashem's presence that dwells in the darkness of this world. Because in order for there to be a king, there must be a nation. And the nation, the people, are in this physical dimension. And this physical dimension is the darkest of all the dimensions. It's the most, the place where the light of Hashem is the most concealed. And so that's what it means, that the malchut, her feet, descend into the darkness, because that's where the malchut is established. It's expressed and experienced here in this world. That's the presence of Hashem that dwells in this world. And so that's why it's always surrounded by this din, judgment energy. And the judgment energy is the concealment. Concealment is judgment. Kindness is revelation. And so we must sweeten her. We must sweeten the malchut, that energy to lead and to guide us. That energy of Hashem is the king must be sweetened, because in this physical world it's hidden and it's constantly being attacked. Everyone in this world, the ego of every person that is born in this world wants to steal malchut for itself. Okay, that's the definition of the ego, is that it wants to rule. It wants to be ruling as a separate entity, as a separate being. And so this malchut is constantly under attack in this physical world by the lower self, by the animal self, by the Yetzer Hara, by the forces of concealment. And so we must sweeten it in order to return it to Hashem. And so we sweeten it with compassion. Compassion which comes from Emunah. That compassionate energy that comes from Emunah is the sweetening of the malchut. And now it's reconnected with Hashem. We are recognizing that Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimloch Le'olam V'ed. We are recognizing Hashem as the true and only King. And when we do that, so then those holy souls that we spoke about, those Mashiach souls, that are the characteristic, the definition of what it means to be that soul, is that they are so humble, they have dissolved any illusion of being a separate self. And so they are now an extension of the Malchut of Hashem. They are included within the Malchut of Hashem. They see themselves as part of. They don't see themselves ever as a separate being, as a part from. They see themselves as part of Hashem. They experience themselves as part of Hashem. They don't attribute any significance to themselves as a separate being. And so now these souls, which are an extension of the Malchut of Hashem, are now also elevated. When you are crowning the Malchut of Hashem with that crown of compassion, which is, as we said, the crown of leadership, the crown of authority, the crown of power, now those souls that are included in that, the souls that are the most worthy of being our leaders, they are now also crowned with this crown of compassion, the crown of leadership, the crown of authority, and now they can lead us and guide us to the Techeilet, to the final purpose, to experiencing Shashua Olam Haba, experiencing that divine bliss as much as we can, even in this world. We spoke about in previous year and how even in this world, every Shabbat, the Gemara says, is 1/60th of Olam Haba. Every Shabbat is 1/60th of this experience of the world to come. And so even in this world, a person throughout their life can connect. It's not something that you don't have any connection to for the 120 years that you live in this world, and then only after this world and only after the Mashiach comes, and when it comes to this year 7,000 of this world, the seventh millennium of this world, that's when you will experience it. No, every day, as much as we are connected to the spark, the aspect of Shabbat in that day, that's how much we will connect to this Shashua Olam Haba, this experience of the world to come already now. And so a person can connect to that when he's learning Torah every day, when he's davening, when he's praying, when he's fulfilling mitzvot, when he's giving tzedakah, when he is remembering that today is the fourth day of the week, getting close to Shabbat, right? Ayom Yom Revi'i b'Shabbat Kodesh, as we say in Shachrit. There's so many different points in the day, opportunities that we have to connect to the Shabbat energy, which is that connection of dveikut with Hashem. That is what dveikut is all about. Dveikut is connecting to Hashem, to the transcendent one, being mevatel yourself, you're nullifying, you're dissolving the lower self, the illusion of the lower self, the illusion of the lower self as a separate entity, and you're surrendering completely into the infinite one, into Emunah Shalom. And that's the onik, that's the ultimate pleasure, that's the onik Shabbat. And that's why also the Zohar calls the Talmidei Chachamim Shabbat. One of the nicknames that the Zohar gives to Talmidei Chachamim, they're called Shabbat. Many times you see in the Zohar, and they call Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, you're the Shabbat. Why is that? And so the Tzaddikim explained, because the Talmidei Chachamim live the 6 days of the week constantly connecting themselves to that consciousness of Shabbat, to that light of Shabbat. And so for them, their reality is a reality of Shabbat. And these are the souls that we're speaking about, that are the worthy souls, the ones that we want to be leading us to Shabbat. If they're living already now their life as Shabbat, right, as the world to come, then they're the most capable people to show us how to connect to that and how to prepare ourselves to experience that more and more every day, constantly, right? Incrementally, constantly increasing our preparation and our experience of that Shabbat experience, of that world to come experience, that next world experience, that transcendence. And so that's the Olam Haba, that's the Shabbat, that's the Mashiach souls. And when we crown them with the compassion, the crown of compassion, by sweetening the anger with compassion. But then Rabbi Nachman speaks about, and he does this in many Torahs, Rabbi Nachman speaks about what can happen, the dangers that are trying to block this from happening, and how to take care of that. And he speaks about how there are people that try to rule try to take the crown of leadership, even though they're not worthy of it, and we don't want them to be our leaders. And they try to take it, and they may be saying to themselves that they're worthy to lead the people because they're compassionate, and they're wanting to lead them out of their compassion for the people. But Rabbi Nachman says that if they are unworthy, then even that compassion is misplaced, and it's maybe not real compassion. Maybe it's not a compassion in the right way, in the right place. How would it be that they're not worthy, even though they have compassion? Rabbi Nachman says that the ultimate rule, what you need in order to be considered a worthy leader of the generation, is absolutely, completely pure, the purest of the pure belief and trust in Hashem. What does it mean, pure? It means that it's exclusive belief and trust, exclusively in the Kadosh Baruch Hu, believing only in Hashem and nothing else. There is no other superstitions, nothing in the world that can affect what happens in the world at large or in my personal life, except for the Ribbon Shalom. I mean, that is the ultimate rule of thumb. That's what is needed for someone to be worthy of that leadership, for someone to be included, to be called one of those holy souls. Because the truth is that Shabbat, that experience of the world to come, is exactly that. It's dissolving all the illusions that there's anything else that has any say, and there's any energy, any force in the universe aside from Hashem, dissolving that illusion and experiencing just the truth of reality, which is, as we know it, en od milvado. There's nothing but Hashem. So that's Emunah. And that's why Shabbat is the aspect of Malchut, which is the aspect of Emunah. So the world to come, the Techeilet of everything, is this itself. The purpose of everything is experiencing Malchut Hashem, en od, right? Like we say in Aleinu L'Shabeach. And so Rabbi Nachman explains about how these people, they come and they try to steal the crown of Malchut away, but there's a protection in place that doesn't allow them to steal it, doesn't allow them, it makes it that even if they steal the crown, it's insignificant and they won't be able to lead us. They won't be able to take that power and that authority over us. And what is that protection? That's the Emunah. There's Emunah that's protecting the Malchut, and we spoke about how Emunah is the higher state of the Malchut. The higher state of the Malchut is kind of like the soul. The neshama of the Malchut is the Emunah. And it protects the Emunah so that if anyone tries to, it protects the Malchut, the crown, and anyone wants to steal it and they're not worthy, that Emunah will cause those people to fall into a disconnect with Chokhmah. And why is that significant? Because the root of Malchut, the power within the crown, that makes the crown a crown of a king and not a crown of a 2-year-old that's playing around. The difference between them is that the crown of a king is rooted in Chokhmah, in the wise men and his wise advisors that guide him to lead the nation with Chokhmah, with wisdom. And to the degree that he has a healthy relationship with that Chokhmah, and he has a healthy relationship with wisdom and the knowledge and the intelligence to be able to guide and lead the nation, then he's able to guide and lead the nation. And then there's power, there's significance to his guidance and to his leadership. But if he is lacking in that, if he has a disconnect, he's not appreciating the wisdom, he has disconnected himself from his wise men, from his advisors, or from the aspect of Chokhmah, then he is unable to lead or guide his kingdom, his nation. And so the crown that he's wearing is absolutely insignificant, and because it's anyways going to lose the power of Malchut, the power to rule over them, because of that disconnect. And so that's what the Emunah does. If anyone steals the crown and is unworthy of it, the Emunah will cause them to be disconnected, to fall into hating the wise, hating the wisdom, hating the Talmidei Chachamim. And then when he hates them and he's disconnected from that wisdom, from that Chokhmah, the crown that he's holding in his hands is worthless. But Rabbi Nachman says that sometimes they are able to completely cut off the Emunah from the Malchut. And so now that protective force that was protecting the crown is been blocked out. How did they do that? They do that by canceling out Emunah, belief and trust in Hashem, with the opposing belief systems, with the corrupted belief systems, what's called minut, heresy, atheism, and idol worship, and all that. And if they do that really strongly, and they really perpetuate that tremendously, then they can block out the Emunah protection and steal the crown away. But Rabbi Nachman is going to say, Rabbi Nachman said what we spoke about yesterday, that even when these people steal the crown away, and they try to rule over us, and they try to overpower us, and they take authority over us against our will, and that could be also the kings of the other nations when we are in exile by other nations, when we were in exile in Babel, by Mitzrayim, and they tried to rule over us. Rabbi Nachman explains that they have never really touched real authority over our essence. Maybe they have power over us to a certain extent, but it's superficial. It's on the outside. It may be on our bodies. It may be over our money. We spoke about yesterday the taxes. Okay, they may have authority to take taxes from us and so on and so forth, but it's superficial because the soul, our soul is always under the authority and the power and the rule of HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Okay, and so now, we're up to, this is what we're up to, Ot Vav, part 6 in this Torah. And Rabbi Nachman says like this, Aval da, Shamina Shamaim en manichim oto likach ota. We spoke about how they try to, with heresy and atheism and the opposing belief systems, they try to block off the Emunah, and then they can try to steal the king, the crown of the king, the Malchut. But Rabbi Nachman says that Min HaShamayim, Hashem doesn't allow them to steal it away. And this is the next part of the story. The next part of the story, the diver came down, the fish were surrounding the treasure chest. The treasure chest is the crown of compassion, which is the crown of leadership, and surrounding it, and the diver is the inappropriate, the one that's unworthy of ruling, unworthy of this crown. And then this treasure chest is surrounded by the birsha fish, which are the fish, which is the aspect of Emunah that protects the crown of compassion. And they try to sever his leg, which we spoke about is referring to his listening to the Chachamim, his relationship. They try to sever and disconnect his relationship, his connection to the Chachma. But what he did was he threw vinegar, and vinegar is the atheism and the heresy and the corrupt belief systems. But then there's something else. Hashem still doesn't allow him to take the crown, and there's a bat kol. There's the heavenly voice that comes out, right? That's the next part of the story. V'nafkat berat kala ma'it lechu bahadi Kartalita dieteta de Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa da'atida lemishde Techeilet litzadikaya le'alma de'ate. היינו על ידי שלמות האותיות של דיבורי אמונה, שהוא בחינת אשת רבי חנינא בן דוסה. So, the next part of the story, the heavenly voice proclaimed that what have you to do with this treasure chest? It belongs to the wife of Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, that she will one day store the Techeilet, which is the blue wool of the tzitzit, for the tzaddikim in the world to come. So what is this referring to? What is this alluding to? Rabbi Nachman says, through the perfection of the letters, of the words of Emunah, which is the aspect of the wife of Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. What does that mean? Rabbi Nachman is going to say here, כי רבי חנינא בן דוסה זה בחינת אמונה כמידתו אמונה. בחינת בחנינא בני די לו בקו חרובין. קו חרובין מידת אמונה. חרובין בחינת בראשים, בחינת בירשה ענב. ואשת זה בחינות האותיות של שלמותם על ידי אמונה, מבחינת ראשי תיבות אבנים שלמות תבנה. והאבנים הן האותיות, כמאמר 3 אבנים בונות 6 בתים, והאותיות נשלמים על ידי אמונה, מבחינת אז יהפוך את העמים אל העמים שפה ברורה. So, Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, says Rabbi Nachman, is referring to Emunah. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa in this story is representing Emunah. We know the stories that the Gemara tells us, all the stories that tell us about Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, that he was especially known for his tremendous belief and trust in Hashem, to a point that he did tremendous miracles with his Emunah in HaKadosh Baruch. And one of the things that it says about him, it says in the Gemara, the Chanina beni, it says that Kol ha'olam nizon bishvil Chanina beni, v'Chanina beni dailo b'kav charuvim. The whole world receives their sustenance, their food. The food of the whole world comes down in the merit of Chanina beni, my son Chanina, But my son Hanina, it's enough for him. For him, he is happy and he is satisfied with a certain measure of carobs, a kav of carobs, a small amount of carobs that he eats from one Shabbat for the whole week. A certain amount of carobs that he eats, a small amount of carobs that he eats, and that he is satisfied. That's all he eats the whole week, even though all the food from the whole world, everywhere surrounding the globe, everyone that's eating their steaks and their chicken and their meat and their this and their that, everything that they're eating is all in the merit of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. Hanina beni, my son Hanina, this is the bat kol that says, but my son Hanina, he is satisfied, he's okay with, he has enough, for him it's enough, just this small kav, small amount of carobs. Okay, so, and the Baal Shem Tov explains that this shvil, in the merit of Hanina beni, Baal Shem Tov explains the word bishvil, because of, or in the merit of, also can be read, shvil means also a channel, meaning that all the sustenance in the world came down through the channel that he opened up of Rabbi Hanina, which means the merit of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. And so Rabbi Nachman explains that charuvin, the carobs, is this aspect of Emunah. How does Rabbi Nachman make a connection between charuvin and carob and Emunah? So charuvin, it sounds like the word charuvin. It sounds like charuv, which means that is deserted. Charuv, charev, churban, destruction or deserted. There's nothing being built in that place. Okay, that's what the word churban or charuvin sounds like. And the birsha, if you remember, we were speaking about the fish that's called birsha. Rabbi Nachman connected it to the medrash that says about Mordechai. Berosh. Berosh is, what was the name of that tree? The Berosh was the tree that we spoke about. The birsha tree. The birsha tree. The cypress tree is a tree that doesn't give fruit. Okay, and so the cypress tree is a tree that is called, you might call it charuv. Okay, it's not built. A tree that doesn't give fruit is a tree that is not built, that it's deserted or desolate. It's by itself. It stays by itself. It doesn't continue to give fruit. So it may grow another tree, right, that is the same tree, but it doesn't give fruit. And so that's called charuv. Okay, and so there's a connection between the kav charuvin, the carobs, which are called charuvin, and this tree, the cypress tree, which we call birsha, which is the aspect of Mordechai, because we said Berosh, Mordechai was called that. That tree was referring, the Medrash makes a reference to Mordechai. And Mordechai is the aspect of Emunah. So that's one connection between Hanina, we see between Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa and Emunah. The Gemara said about Mordechai that in the place of a thorn will sprout the cypress tree. And the Gemara says that's speaking about Mordechai. Mordechai is the aspect of Yehudi, which is the one who cancels out the corrupted belief systems, the atheism, the heresy, and all that. And so this is one connection between Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa and Emunah. Okay, but we know from the Gemara that his midah, that he had this particular characteristic of tremendous emunah and faith in Hashem, and so he is representing emunah in the story. Okay, so kav charuvin midat emunah charuvin mechinat beroshim mechinat birshana. And now, what about the wife of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa? What does she represent? So if Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa is emunah, what does Eshet Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa represent? And so Rabbi Nachman explains that Eshet is an acronym for Avanim Shlemot Tivneh, and which is a pasuk they're referring to the Mizbeach. that you should build it with complete stones. Avanim shlemot tivne. You should build it with complete stones. Okay, so ואשת, says Rabbi Nachman, זה בחינות האותיות ששלמותם על ידי אמונה, בבחינת ראשי תיבות אבנים שלמות תבנה. והאבנים הן האותיות, כמאמר שלושה אבנים בעונות שישם בתים. So the letters are completed with Emunah, which is really interesting because we know that Emunah is the aspect of Malchut, and Malchut is the aspect of the letters. We know that the Zohar teaches us that the voice, the kol, is the source for the words, but then the lips come and turn it into, the mouth comes and turns that voice into discernible letters and words that you can communicate with. And so that represents the Malchut. So the voice is the Tiferet. The voice is the Tiferet, and that's the source of the energy that the Malchut receives. And then the Malchut takes that energy, just like a wife takes from her husband and builds from that children, right? And so that's what she builds. She builds with that energy, that life energy, the voice, discernible words, and gives it a form, a shape. She gives a shape and a form to it. That's what the Malchut does. And so those are the letters, and the words are aspects of Malchut. That's why also when we daven, we start off Shemona Esrei by saying, Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, O Pi Yagi Tehilatecha. So please Hashem, open my lips, and I will speak these praises to you, right? My lips, my mouth, I will speak these praises to you. And so the Baal Shem Tov teaches us that, what does that mean? It means that when we are praying to Hashem, the intention is that the Malchut, the Shechina, the life energy within me, which is the life energy that Hashem is dwelling within me and giving me life in each moment, that's the aspect of Shechina, that's the aspect of Malchut. It is turning to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and praying these words through my mouth. And that's Adonai with Aleph Dalet Nun Yud is the name of the Malchut, of the Shechina. It's another name of the Shechina in the Zohar. And the Malchut is speaking from my lips, from my mouth. And pay attention to the first three words. Adonai Sfatai Tiftach is Rashi Tevot Eshet. It's the same Rashi Tevot. It's the same acronym as this of Eshet Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, which is also Avanim Shlemot Tivne. And Rabbi Nachman says that what does it mean that with complete stones you should build it? The Mizbeach. Again, Mizbeach is Malchut. We spoke about this in the previous Torah. The Mizbeach is the Malchut, and the perfection. Building up the Malchut, you're building her up with the letters and the words of the prayer when they are completed, when they are perfected. That's building up the Malchut. Why are the stones the letters? Rabbi Nachman brings from Sefer Yetzirah, right? The Sefer that we have, very, very early Kabbalah Sefer, from Avram Avinu. The Sefer Yetzirah teaches very important rule that the 3 stones build 6 houses. The Sefer Yetzirah says, 3 stones build 6 houses. And it's referring to the permutations, the combinations, the possible combinations of letters. When you have 3 letters in a word, you can build 6 houses, 6 possible combinations of that word, of the letters in that word, to form 6 houses. A house is a word, and the stones that build a house are the letters in the word. Very interesting that you can really connect this to the original, the example Rabbi Nachman brought at the beginning of the Torah, that you build a house for a certain purpose. And so you're building the house with the stones. And so it kind of like, there's a connection with that over here, because the stones, the letters that you're using to build the words, which are building the Emunah, are building the Malchut, which is the purpose of creation, the purpose of everything. So there's an interesting connection there. But the Sefer Yetzirah calls the letters stones, rocks, or the what you're building the house with, the stones that you're building the house with, and the houses are the words. And so when it says Avanim Shlemot Tivne, you should build it with complete stones, meaning that you need to build the Malchut, right? The completion of that purpose. You're building it with complete stones. But how do you complete the stones? How do you make sure that those stones are perfected? And how do you complete the house with those perfect stones? Through Emunah. That's what Rabbi Nachman says here. And so Eshet Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa are those stones. These are the stones, the letters that are completing the Emunah, that are building up the Emunah, that are building up the Malchut. And the Kavanot, we know that when we're davening, when we're praying every day, we are building up the Malchut, which is the Emunah. Ve'otiyot nishlamim al yidei Emunah. That's the next part, what he says here, that these letters are completed, are perfected through Emunah. ואותיות נשלמים על ידי אמונה מבחינת אז ההפוך אל העמים שפה ברורה, היינו על ידי אמונה שהוא בחינת כל כולם בשם השם, על ידי זה ההפוך שפה ברורה בחינת שלימות הדיבור. So Rabbi Nachman brings a pasuk in Sifania that speaks about in the time of the redemption, in the time of the Geula. It says there that Hashem says that I will return the nations, I will bring all the nations back to a pure language, a pure language, safa berura. What does that mean? What's the definition of a pure language? So the continuation of that pasuk is explaining that. And it says, so that they may all call in the name of Hashem. So what does that mean? That means that a pure language, the perfection of speech, the perfection of language, the safa berura, the pure speech, the absolute perfection of dibur is what? To call out to Hashem. What does it mean to call out to Hashem? It means emunah. And so that's the emunah that brings dibur to its state of perfection. That's the emunah that we're speaking about that brings the letters of the words to a state of safa berura. And that's the perfection of speech, the perfection of dibur, the perfection of malchut, the ultimate highest state of malchut is what? Is through emunah. When everyone speaks to Hashem, anyone calls out to Hashem, recognizing that all communication is with Hashem, because all there is Hashem. And so that's what Eshet Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa is representing here. It's the letters that are completed, perfected by Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, by the Emunah. And these letters are building up Emunah, and they are built from a state of Emunah, of calling out to Hashem. The perfection of these letters, of this speech, is the ultimate purpose of everything. This is exactly what this whole Torah is all about. It's all about the Shabbat. And the Shabbat is everyone recognizing that the ultimate, the truth of reality is Hashem, right? Shabbat is all about Emunah. It's the purpose of everything. That's the consciousness of the world to come, and that is the purpose of the whole universe. Ki kol ha'olamot nivre'u al yidei ha'otiyot u'shleimut ha'otiyot hu yud shehu bechinat olam haba nivra beyud. And so this next part, Bezrat Hashem, will see in the continuation, the next shiur. And that's what's going to connect to the Techeilet. He's going to show the Techeilet in the letter of Yud, which is very deep and very wonderful. We're going to need a whole shiur to explain that, B'ezrat Hashem.